Hi, Erin. So, welcome. So
Thank you
today
very much.
we're oh great. So today we're here with Erin Schulz, and we're going to talk about Erin as an artist and also her art. She's exhibiting in our interdependent show in May at Vashon Center for the Arts. So welcome, and thank you for taking the time in this unusual time.
Yes.
So let's start with, basically that background of your education or your experience of what inspired you, what, developed your development as an artist. You want to tell us about that?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much for doing this. I'm happy to be here. So it started in Yakima, Washington, where I grew up. And ever since I was little, I loved to draw, and I loved to draw realistic images, using something to look at and drawing it. And I was fortunate to have two realist artists as teachers, and that was hard to come by in the 70s. So in junior high and high school, in the Yakima School District. And that kind of set me on a path. And then, I attended the University of Washington, studied other things, and eventually started taking classes at Gage Academy, which used to be called the Academy of Realist Art. And that's really where I found my place and decided that this was definitely my path.
Right. So from a young age, like how young did you start drawing?
5 or 6 years old. I mean, I remember vividly actually sitting at the kitchen table drawing with friends, and yeah, I just remember loving to draw.
And then where is it that at what point in all that from five through your high school, through your college or through your education that you really like claimed and said, this is me as an artist?
Well, growing up, I was always thought I could never make it financially as an artist, and so
Mm,
I decided to go a different path for in terms of a career, but it was always something that was with me, and I always did art, regardless of what I was studying or where I was working. And so it always felt like something that was going to be with me. And it was once I established a means of making a living elsewhere, I could afford to actually go to art school. Um, and that's where I started taking classes at Gage.
right. And then was there some part in there? I think you had told me a story about some moment, some epiphany moment or
Yeah,
aha moment.
absolutely. So studying with Juliet Aristides, she's a fabulous teacher. I remember the moment specifically where it was really starting to come together, and I was actually painting the knee on a model, and I feel like I just got it. And within months, I also took a course with Gary Fagan, and I remember, telling him that this was definitely what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a painter.
It's such a great to find and get that clarity, and it's
Yes.
interesting when it comes. So I guess knees are forever your
Yes.
your touchstone point,
They're a perfect form.
right? So let's move on to the pieces that you've done for the show that are absolutely beautiful. One of which we've used on our we actually took a piece of it because it's quite a beautiful piece, a piece of it for our poster. So, and you name them very simply: Migration 1, 2, and 3. So let's start with Migration 1. Just tell us a bit about the painting and what inspired you and all that.
And I immediately had sort of these visions for the pieces that would fit, and it is along the lines of the work that I had been doing, where it was this this partnership that we have with other creatures on Earth, and so this kind of this moving forward together, and so this migration piece, sort of like kind of like we're all in this together. Um, and so that's really where the whole theme of migration sort of came from.
Mhm.
And then for the first piece, Migration One, it was really looking at how this notion of nurturing, and how uh, and Mother's Day coming up, and being a mother myself, and just appreciating the mothers on Vashon that I've gotten to know, and just trying to kind of bring that into this painting of where you see moms of birds, and of raccoons and horses and people here on Vashon. kind of doing the same thing where you're attending, but keeping watch and things like that.
Well, I noticed that you got that movement in all three pieces of going forward, but on that one, the mother's looking back. It's like what we do.
Yes.
We're going forward, but we're still, we got to make sure that the herd is coming along with us. So it's really
Yeah.
quite touching and loving.
Oh, thank you.
And what about migration 2?
So migration 2 is another thing that we have in common with these other creatures on Earth is this idea of coming of age, and I have a 12-year-old who is definitely moving in that direction. So just and seeing all the kids on Vashon here as they're growing up, this independence and this striking out and this adventure, but also bringing the younger kids along. So this kind of protective, this courage. So I wanted to kind of show that piece. And then they are also looking back in a sense to their parents and just getting affirmation and making sure, kind of this sense of, am I doing it right? Or can you be proud of me? Or sort of that kind of thing.
The boy in the front is so, he's very, it's a very sweet but powerful posture. He's like moving forward, but he's young, and it's just really sweet, but he's being followed by the big beast, and the little girl. And then migration, so those two have the bigger beasts and then the people, and then migration 3 is very different.
Yes. So I also wanted to have this notion of playfulness. And so the piece in itself is kind of that way. So it's kind of more of a whimsical approach to the painting.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently watched a program about pangolins, and I knew nothing about these animals. And the program that I saw, it was a pangolin who was actually rescued and was being brought up by human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And the relationship between this pangolin and the rescuer was so heartwarming. And the pangolin was like a cat or a dog, and was cuddly even with those scales, and so and playful, and just so integrated with the human counterparts in this sort of homey area. So and then the pangolin itself just feels like it rolls up in a ball for protection. It feels like a soccer ball, and there's so much soccer around the world. So it just felt like just a sort of a fun way to show how we can be playful with each other as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I noticed the textures of the two of them being so similar. I mean, showing, and it's fun when you put those to juxtapose with those, because they're so similar but yet they're very different. A soccer ball and this scaly animal. So it's really great. So, well, they're great, lovely pieces. And so kind of tell me a little bit about your process, like how they're just layers and layers, and the colors, and just anything that you want to share, and the time that it takes for you to create these amazing pieces.
So my process, I just have I have a vision of what I want to try to accomplish in the painting, and I'll either sketch it out, or I'll use tools like PowerPoint and trying to move images or blocks of images around, and to get the right composition. And then with my figures, I'm really trying to, get that right feel or emotion. And so I've got, and their gaze and their direction. So there's a lot just thinking about, putting all these pieces together in a 2D space. Yeah. So I use whatever tools I can find to sort of map it out. And then I just start painting. I start with a drawing on the canvas, and just go at it.
Just go at it. So on each of these, I know they're different sizes, but on each of these, like, what type do you need to wait for it to dry and then layer on? And do you work at more than one at a time because of that, or?
Yeah, so in this case, I mapped out all 3 pieces before I started painting.
Okay, so you make the collection. You map out the
Yeah,
whole
I
collection.
make a collection.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and I spend a lot of time just getting the composition and the size of the canvas right. And in this case, I used aluminum. And so I had somebody else in Seattle prepare the aluminum panels for me. So there was some waiting time there. And I was so excited to get started. It was tough to wait that long to get these panels. And then I just, I don't typically, I'm not a layered painter. I'm more I get the tone right. So it's really, I approach it from step 1 is the drawing. So get everything proportions correct. And it's not a detailed drawing. It's just like blocking out the proportions.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then I use just one tone for, and use wipeout. So I'll just use like a brown umber, and then get the tones right on the painting. And then I'll move in with color. And sometimes I'll do the tone and the color at the same time. And the final piece might just be, or the final stage would just be tweaking, with highlights and such.
And so how long, do you have any concept of how many hours a painting takes? Or
Yeah, if everything's going well, it just takes a handful of hours, like 20 to 40 hours. If things aren't going well, it can take longer than that.
20 and 40 hours is a lot of hours.
For me, that doesn't sound very long because I spend so much time painting.
Yes. Well, you're a painter. That's what you do. That's what you do. So speaking of time, we can just segue in. How are you feeling about this stay at home, and how is that, is it offering you more time? Is it, you now, I assume you have your children at home, all that sort of thing. So how is it affecting you, for lack of a better word, as you as an artist and a painter?
Yeah, so it doesn't. My daily life is pretty much the same, because we do homeschool primarily anyway.
Okay.
And yeah, so in terms of the biggest thing that we're missing right now is soccer. So
speaking of,
I have as much time as I always have to paint, which is a lot of time, fortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And so it hasn't affected me so much that way. It has affected my ability to sort of just go out. I can't just go see art at restaurants and museums. So that's probably the biggest effect.
We miss all of that.
Yeah.
So, it's different. It's a different experience to walk into a gallery with a collection and to stand next to it than to see it. And we're trying, but we all are just there's gonna be an end in this. We're gonna be back in the gallery. So we're just in that time. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and to, share a bit about your process, and your 3 pieces are really beautiful, and the collection. And thank you for joining our Interdependence show. And that's it. Just want to thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for involving me.
Be well.
Okay, you too.